Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Valley Line Southeast LRT Virtual Spring Open House Update for 83rd Street. A special welcome to all the 83rd Street residents in the area here. Thank you so much for joining us on this virtual update. And the presentation is done by TransEd, Valley Line Southeast, and City of Edmonton as well. So just a little bit of housekeeping here. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel. We'll also share it on our social media. And we will be taking questions and comments for the entire duration of the presentation. So if you would like to submit a question or comment on your phone or your tablet, if you go to the bottom of the screen, you'll see a Q&A there. And if you're on your desktop or laptop, you just need to exit full screen mode and you should see a Q&A section that if you click on, you'll be able to submit a question or comment. This platform just updated their software, so the color might be a little bit different, but if you see the Q&A, as long as you click on it, you'll be able to submit a question or comment. And on the virtual presentation today from the City of Edmonton, we have Michelle Ponich. Michelle has a quick update. She's from the Community Relations Department at the city.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, or I should say good afternoon. As Isabel mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the city. Just wanted to let you know that we realize that you may have expected parking management to be with us today. Unfortunately, they are unable to be here. So you have two options. You're more than welcome to pose questions during the Q&A portion of this presentation, or you can reach out to parking management via epark@edmonton.ca. That's EPARK@edmonton.ca. And we'd be happy to take that question back to you for you and get an answer. Enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, Michelle. And from the ETS side, we have Anthony Ang, and on TransEd, we have Eric Marcotte, who's the Alstom Rail Testing and Commissioning Manager. We have Dallas Linskog, who is the TransEd Communications Manager. And the voice you're hearing is me, Isabel Onaba. I'm TransEd Communications Coordinator. And once again, we'll be taking the questions and comments for the duration of the presentation that will be answered at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dallas. Dallas, I think you're still on mute.
Oh, I pushed my button and muted myself as unmuted. How many times have we done that in the last little while? What I was saying, and it was quite amazing, was welcome to the call, and thanks to my partners at the city and also my co-workers with TransEd for joining me this afternoon to put on this information session for those of you on 83rd Street specifically, but also to those of you that may have found us online. As Isabel mentioned, we have recorded this presentation, so you may have found that link and clicked on it, and we thank you for doing that. We hope that you'll get some good information out of the session today. Sit back, relax. It's probably going to take about an hour, maybe a little longer. It kind of depends on how many questions you guys have. And of course, we're happy to answer as many as we possibly can today. So you're looking at a screen right now that shows a map. I imagine most of you are very familiar with the alignment by now. We've been working since 2016 along the route. Obviously, we're focusing on the 83rd Street today in today's presentation, but I am going to give some highlights of some of the other areas along the road as well, just to give you a quick update. For those of you who may not know, this is a public-private partnership, also known as a P3. We are partnered with the city. TransEd itself is made up of 4 different companies. We are Bechtel, Ellis-Don, Alstom, and Fengate. The alignment itself is 13 kilometers long. There's 11 stops along that route that are at-grade type stops. They are low floor, suitable for the low floor train that we are bringing to the community. And of course, there's the significant elevated station at the Davie station, which also incorporates a transit park and ride as well. Anthony, I'm sure we'll talk about that today. And then the connection for the Valley Line to the rest of the ETS network and LRT network in the city occurs downtown at the connector building that we're constructing on 102 Ave, just in the corner of Churchill Square. And that will provide pedestrian access to the existing station via elevators, escalators, and stairs. All right, so this presentation, I'm going to cover some of the construction updates. You can go to the next slide if you want, Isabel. Once I'm done that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He's going to take you through some interesting new information that you probably haven't heard a lot about, and that's the train testing and commissioning, a new area of the project that we're moving into, or a new stage of the project that we're moving into. Following that, we'll turn it back to Isabel, who you already heard, and she's going to walk you through some of the safety messages that we'd like to get out into the community, and we're hoping that you'll help us share that information as well to those of you that maybe are connected with your community groups and clubs and organizations, and even just in conversations with your neighbors. Then we'll turn it over to Anthony from ETS. He's going to talk to you about the bus network and the redesign, and also the on-demand service. And following that, we'll turn it back to the questions. So as Isabel mentioned earlier, you're welcome to type in your questions and send them to us as the presentation moves along. And we look forward to answering those when we get to section 5. So on to the construction update. At a high level, I can tell you that we have been busy working all winter long in areas that we can. So obviously at Edmonton, it's a little hard in the frozen environment to do some of the road work and earthwork, civil type activities. But where we can, we've been working inside buildings and inside heated enclosures for doing some of our concrete work. Now I can tell you that along the entire alignment, all of the track is laid. And you can see that in the photo here, even on the left of the Duodenal Bridge. The rail itself is laid across the bridge. It's all the way through the tunnel as well, and really stretches all the way from downtown and to the south at 28th Ave in the Millwoods area. So all 13 kilometers of rail has been put down. You can sort of see it in the picture on the left as well, the poles sticking up. Eric's going to talk more about those in his portion, but the overhead catenary system is also largely installed along the alignment as well. All of the poles are standing, and we're just actively installing the catenary cabling as we speak. So Duwatna Bridge, as you can see in the picture there, is well underway. We've begun removing the berms out of the river. We've begun installing the underslung shared use pathway. You can see a device hanging from the structure in the top right photo. That's used to give access underside of the bridge to install the steel anchors, the steel supports that are anchored into the concrete, and the bridge, or the SUP shared path, hangs from those anchors. It's important to note here, the river valley and the river banks on both sides are currently construction laydown yards. I'm sure you've probably seen that if you've been down in the river valley, and it's where we've been actively staging our work for the last numerous years. This summer, we'll see the removal of those laydown yards and the restoration of the parks on both sides, so Louise McKinney and Henrietta Muir. That will also see the installation of the new trail systems and reconnection of the existing trails in the river valley, and will also provide the access to the new shared use path underneath the Duodenal Bridge. So we expect to have that complete by the end of the summer as well, and reestablish pedestrian movement across the river. On to the next slide. I think we're going to take you over to Davies Station. Sure enough, there it is. So at the beginning of the presentation, you may have been looking at a photo that was showing the elevated guideway very close to the station. That is a 1.2 kilometer section of elevated rail. It passes through the transit station here, which has a 1,300 car park and ride. You can see the building here is well underway. It is at the final stages really of interior work. You can see the art glass has been installed on the side of the structure as well. And I encourage you, if you have a chance, to head out there maybe late in the evening when the sun's going down and the lights are lit up inside the station. Viewing that art through a lit up station is quite it's remarkable. Really, it's really beautiful to look at. I also like to point out the unique wood structure of the ceiling in this station. So we're looking forward to opening that up to passengers later this year as well. All right, moving on now, I think, to more specifically the 83rd Street area. So the stops that you see here photographed on the left is the Avonmore stop. On the right is the Bonnie Doon stop. Both of these stops are well underway, as you can tell from the photos, and those of you that of course live along the neighborhood and drive that route all the time will see that they're well advanced. I can tell you that's the status of all of our stops along the alignment. All 11 stops are at a point where the glass is largely installed. A lot of the art glass that we're going to show you some photos of has been installed as well. And the canopies, the shelters, all of the infrastructure that's associated with the stop is well underway. We're really at a stage, and Erica will talk about this shortly, of just completing cable connections at some of the cabinets along there. So if you see those shiny silver cabinets, inside there are thousands of electrical connections that are being done right now with our electrical crews and getting things to a state where they can be tested, and train operations are just around the corner. On to the next slide. I can talk a little bit about roadworks and traffic signals. So a few general comments here. First of all, along the 83 Street corridor, particularly between Argyle Road and 82nd Avenue, this is one of the few areas actually along the alignment where the top lift pavement has been done. And that means from literally the top lift pavement, top of the top of the gutter to top of the gutter is how we like to describe it. In some cases, though, that's not entirely completed. And in some cases, there's a little bit of deficiency work that has to be taken care of. As you probably note, if you walked through there, there's a little bit of damage from snowplows, and that's very common. It happens during construction. It's something we plan for and we expect. So there are a few localized areas of sidewalk that'll get replaced this summer. Very minor. Pedestrian access won't be affected. We'll keep pedestrians moving through there. But you should expect to see us out on the road doing that a little bit this year, and then finalizing the pavement after that's done. Another unique thing that has to happen in that area along the side streets is something called a concrete verge. So we have done a lot of the landscaping in the area. You've probably seen that as well. A lot of the planting beds have gone in. There is an addition of a concrete separation or buffer is maybe a better way to describe it, right on the back of the curb that also has to get installed. And it just goes a few meters along each of the side streets. So you'll see us working in there to place that concrete this summer as well. Relatively minor work. The traffic signals pictured in all three here are something I want to talk about in a bit more detail. You should expect to see those signals starting to come online in the coming months. Now that's an integrated thing that we do in conjunction with the train signals, and Eric is going to talk about that in more detail. My highlight here is really just to be aware of those signals at all times. We have temporary ones at times that you need to follow right now, and when they come down, these ones will light up, and the bags that cover the fixtures right now will be removed. And really, Isabel's going to talk about it more. We just want you to make sure you're always following the signage and the traffic signals. If you do that, you will be safe. That's how everything is designed. That's how our traffic management works. And we just need you to follow the signals. And if you do that, everything's going to be A-okay. A little bit of note at 82nd Avenue intersection, there's a little bit of pavement work that we'll likely that we do have to do there. We're not certain at this point if it will require us to close a lane. We're working hard to be able to avoid that, but there's a small amount of work to do at that intersection to watch out for as well as the stringing of the overhead catenary system cables when that goes through the intersection that will be localized and short duration lane closures there as well. A little note up further to the north, but kind of across from Bonnie Doon Mall. We've been working through the winter here installing the retaining walls, making the landscaping tie-ins for these properties complete. We are 80–90% complete that now. Last of the landscaping work will happen here shortly. I think that's basically the highlights I wanted to talk about for 83rd Street specifically. Other than the art, thanks to Isabella. Flipping to the next slide. I did want to highlight this. So you'll see a lot of unique art along the alignment, and a lot of it is incorporated with the stop shelters. This particular art that you're looking at here is at the Bonnie Doon stop, and this was created by Oksana Movchen. The words I've got here that came directly from her is that the inspiration for this is drawn from Bonnie Doon's historic Silver Heights Peony Gardens. And each glass shelter represents one of the 4 seasons and illustrates the transformation of a peony garden throughout the year. If you've had a chance to look at it, it's very bright, very colorful. It'll be, I think, a lot of fun to be inside those shelters and just looking out through that art. I can see people doing selfies and you know, that kind of picture taking when they are waiting for the train to arrive. The next piece of art that we want to show you is at the Avonmore. This will be installed at the Avonmore stop. We won't be putting this art up until a little bit further in construction just to protect it and prevent any kind of damage or vandalism. But what you see here is something created by Paul Freeman. And this is a canopy art that's mounted on top of the canopy, obviously, as you can see that. It's 3 whimsical life-size sculptures of deer merrily sliding down the roof of the transit shelter. I think this is really kind of cool. I think it's going to be a really realistic and playful kind of sculpture that's going to evoke a lot of conversation from people and a lot of, you know, chuckles and laughter, even as people are just driving down the street, passing the stop and seeing these deer having a good old time on top of the shelter roof. So I want to point out all of the information on the art along the alignment can be found at the Edmonton Arts Council website. And I encourage you to check it out. You can see renderings and photographs of what all of the art along the alignment will look like. And it's something that I think is really unique and really brings an interest and a unique element to the project. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over now to Eric. He's going to talk to you about the testing and commissioning. I think you're going to enjoy this part of the presentation. It's something that people don't get to hear a lot about typically. And Eric's going to try and simplify it and help you understand his word. Believe me, the fella can talk very technical. I'm sure you know Eric, but he's going to do it as simply as he can for you here and give you a flavor of what it takes to get these trains up and running. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dallas. So guys, really happy to be with all of you and to present to you the train and the testing that we will be doing on the trains, but also the system, because we're not just testing the trains. A little bit of a quick view about what we did with the train. So every single train that we've prepared for Edmonton has been tested statically and dynamically in our facility in Kingston, Ontario. So that includes, going to the maximum speed that the train can go at and looking at different maneuvers to assure ourselves that those trains were ready to go and ready to ship to Edmonton. Can we go to the next slide? So what you will see in the next slide is that, number one, all the trains are in Edmonton right now. So very proud of that. It's a great achievement, great vehicles. They look sharp, they're very nice, and it's really interesting to see them now at home and ready to provide the support and services that are expected from Edmontonian. So really good. So those trains right now are all stationed at the OMF. So this is the Operation and Maintenance Facility. So that we call it OMF for short. It's easy for us. But abbreviations are what they are, and sometimes it's difficult. But look at this building; it's a gorgeous building. There's still, adjustments and minor finishes that are being done, but it's really nice, and it's spacious but compact at the same time. So you have to know that all 26 trains will be stored inside of the facilities every single night. To ensure that, in the middle of winter and also in the summer, those vehicles will be deployed quite quickly, and you have minimum preparation to go on the main line. So that's really the main idea there. You can see on the OMF or the maintenance facility, the entry to the maintenance bay. So that's what you see, the green doors, 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are all access that we use to do the normal preventive maintenance that we will be doing on those trains. So that's normal, stuff that we have to complete, and we have, daily maintenance. We've got monthly maintenance and so on and so forth. All of that to maximize the comfort for all of the passengers, and also to assure a very high level of durability for all of those vehicles. And you can see one of the feature which is interesting is the couplers that allows us to couple two trains together for moving vehicles in tandem, and it's part of the normal process for those vehicles. So let's go to the next page. So on those trains, as you have probably noticed, but if you have not, we've started doing verification, and one of the critical element, of course, to move the trains is, as was mentioned by Dallas earlier, is the overhead catenary system. Well, here's another abbreviation for you, OCS, for overhead catenary system. So if ever you see that, you'll know what it is now. So the OCS, or the overhead catenary system, is really the pole, the arms, or we call it jewelry, because it decorates the pole, and the cables. And the cables is where the vehicles will draw the power from, or are drawing the power from. So whenever you see the system starting to be deployed and installed near your area, as soon as you see those cables up in the air, you have to assume that power is on. So that's normal, but we do have to take precautions. And Isabelle will give us some very good information a little bit later on in the presentation with respect to safety and how we need to behave in and around the system. So from an overall team perspective, we're always very excited when we have the cables and when we can start bringing the vehicles. So you'll notice that the vehicle on the right has some interesting little wings on the side. So it's not to make it go faster or slower. It's really part of the overall commissioning process. So one of the first activity that we do during the commissioning is, of course, energize the power into our traction power systems and stations, as well as power up the OCS. But very quickly after that, we will want to bring the trains and verify the clearance. Of course, everybody in the team of Trans-Z is, taking, tons of measurements and verify diligently all the aspect of the alignment and the equipment to make sure that the clearances and everything that's required will be present and will be met. But this isn't just low technical verification to make sure that nothing is in the way. So that verification is systematic, done throughout. And when you see a vehicle that's being pushed with those envelope clearance templates, is really that's what it is. So when you see that, that means that train is going to be operating dynamically on its own power pretty soon. So it's a good indicator. So let's go to the next slide. For sure, for our activities, we always like when we get to that stage, as we're getting ready, our team is literally biting at the bit when they have a new area to actually go in there, start doing the clearance test, and then after that, be ready to do our dynamic activity with the trains. So you'll notice that as we move the vehicles, on the line, and you can see on the lower right-hand side picture, there's a limited amount of space between the trains. And there is an envelope that we consider, a no-go zone for where we don't want people to be intruding, and it's all for everybody's, safety. So please don't go and jaywalk. Use the proper crossings. They've been designed for that. It's made to be safe. And to ensure that you can go about your business without any encumbrance or issues. One point that's important also is that those electrical vehicles are very quiet. So don't count on hearing a train coming if it's coming behind you. It's really, really important that you look both directions. Same thing as what we tell everybody and our kids when crossing the street. Look both directions before you cross. The same thing for the train. So you have to respect the trains, and we do have operators on the vehicles, but those trains take some distance to stop. Not unlike a car or a heavy vehicle. So you don't want to force the driver to actually go into an emergency conditions. You will see on the upper right-hand side the signals, and you'll see different kinds of signals. So first you've got the street signals, and the blue dot will show you a little bit what it is, right? So we all know them, and we're accustomed to them. The sequence may have changed on the street corners, but nothing different than what you're really used to. So as long as you respect those, everything will be fine. But you have to be really respecting the turning, as the vehicles or the trains have also their own signals. So those are the small poles that we see on the forefront. So I don't know if we can point that out with the pointer. Exactly. Thank you very much. So that pole that you see there, this is what the train operators are actually using for the street lights. So they don't follow the same lights as the regular traffic, mainly because the rules are such that we are separating the timing of when the train will cross versus when the vehicle traffic or your cars or trucks traffic will be crossing. So that's one of the main thing. And also, we don't want to have confusion between the train operators and the normal public. So from that perspective, everybody has their own signals. Everybody needs to respect them, and as long as that's being done, everything will be fine. So you can imagine that there's some coordination taking place, and there's some software, some cabling, and all kinds of different things. And we need to verify that systematically throughout the alignment. So every single signal is verified in the manufacturing facility, but also gets re-verified and integrated at the street corner. And it's a multi-step approach because there's many components that are in the track, on the inside of utility cabinets, different location in complexes near the alignment, and also at the operation control center, which, by the way, is a very neat place where our operation control center staff are able to monitor the health of the full system, and we'll be able to see the behavior of the system and also see where the trains are located, and be able to respond to events, and then provide augmentation to services as needed. So really a very good and very interesting approach for the overall verification of the system, but extremely systematic, very detailed. So as you can imagine, or in case you don't know, we have a lot of cabling, as was mentioned by Dallas earlier. We also have optical fiber and a number of other elements that are used to communicate all the data going to and from the different areas of the system. And this is how we make sure that the system is safe, that the service is always on time, and that everybody within the system, from the Transed people to also the passengers, are kept informed and coordinated. So we want everybody to be going to work on time. We want to have everybody able to come back home on time. And also we want to make sure that everybody's safety is maintained throughout. So we are entering a very, very interesting phase of the testing, where we actually have cars moving. So the cars moving is probably the thing that you see the most, but there's a lot of things that you don't see that are happening behind the scenes. So with all the connections that we have to verify and all the equipment throughout, it truly takes a lot of focus from a lot of people for a fair amount of time to get all of those systems up and ready. And of course, we want to assure that the system is ready and the right way, and we will do everything that needs to be done to have a very nice and comfortable operating system for everyone. We can go to the next thing. And I think, now so Isabelle, so I've been talking about all the safety stuff, and maybe one thing, if I may take a little bit of time on this one. You see on this picture is a very interesting one. It shows the OCS, so the overhead catenary system, and also the catenary, which is that little folding device. And there's a carbon on top, and the carbon is actually what is picking up the power from the power line and bringing into the car, and this is what actually drives the whole vehicle. So on this, Isabelle, if you want to take it away and talk to us about train safety.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Eric. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of train safety. Just like Eric and Dallas had mentioned, we do have train testing that is happening along the alignment. If you're driven down to 66th Street, you might have seen the trains out and about. Now, the low floor train system that we are constructing here with the Valley Line Southeast differs quite a lot from the high flow train system when it comes to how the trains move. So with the high flow train system that many Edmontonians, and I'm sure many people on the call might be aware of, it has a lot of designated track. And so that's when you see the crossing arms, the gates, the bells. And the Valley Line Southeast, we have low floor trains that integrate with traffic. And so I'm just going to take you through a couple of train safety messages here, some that are more applicable when we're in construction phase, and then others that will be used even continuing into the operationals and when it's public service commencement. The first one is to be aware of your surroundings and other road users and stay alert while on the road. So here is a prime example of how the cars share the road with trains. This is taken in the Strathern area on 95th Avenue. And so you can see that there's track right in the middle, and then there's going to be traffic on either side of the road. And so we ask that even as you're traveling as a pedestrian or a driver, two-wheeler, if you're on your scooter, or if you're on your bicycle, to just be aware that cars do share the road with trains, and to make sure that you keep alert while you're on the road. The second one is to do not shortcut across tracks, only cross at designated pedestrian crossings. Now, the Valley Line Southeast low flow trains do not have crossing arms, they don't have gates, they don't have bells, and they don't have fences. If you have traveled anywhere, even just along in Kingsway, you would have seen the gates come down every time that the train is crossing. And here we do not have any of those crossing arms, those gates, or those bells. And so we just ask that the public and the pedestrians, when you're traveling, to make sure that you're not shortcutting across any of the tracks, and you're only crossing at the designated pedestrian crossings that we have provided and that are there for your safety. The third is to always follow the direction of construction personnel and flaggers. We care about our crews, we care about the people on the road. We want to make sure that everyone reaches their destination safely. And we want to make sure that all our crews also get home to their families and their friends safe. And so when you see a flag person or any construction personnel, just like in the image here, telling you to stop, we ask that you please stop and you follow their direction, because they are there for your safety and they're there for the safety of everyone else who's on the construction site, because they have information of what's coming or what's going or what's moving, and they just need to make sure that they are maneuvering the traffic in that way. And so road users, when you're out and about, you see construction personnel, you see flaggers, just follow their lead. They're there for you. The fourth one is to always follow traffic and pedestrian signs and signals. Just like Eric and Dallas have mentioned in the presentation as well, there's a lot of signaling that is going up and along the entire 13-kilometer alignment. And you will see a lot even just on 83rd Street that's grown up. Some of these signals that you might have seen are not yet active, but we do ask that you follow any of the traffic and pedestrian signals that are. For example, here you can see the stop sign and the no left turn sign. And so we've put a lot of these, again, for the public safety, because we are aware of any of the kind of inconveniences or anything that might not be safe that's coming up close. So if you're able to, actually, whenever you're able to, just make sure that you pay attention to the traffic signals and the pedestrian signs and signals that are there put out for your safety as well. The last one that I have here is to be aware that coming into contact with live overhead wires can lead to serious injury or death, and to keep all high-reaching devices such as ladders, outdoor banner lights, installation poles, drones, and remote-controlled planes away from the energized overhead wires. Eric and Dallas have also touched on this throughout the presentation, that we have the overhead wires energized in different areas along the entire 13-kilometer alignment. And for the public safety, we always ask that you always assume that these overhead wires are energized. And to make sure that if you're on 83rd Street, you just be a good neighbor. If you see somebody who if you're out there walking and you happen to see somebody maybe flying a drone or putting a banner or light, an installation pole that's near or in close proximity to these overhead wires, you remind them that those overhead wires are live. We wouldn't want any incidents, and so we ask that you pass on the information to your friends, your family, your neighbors, and let them know that these overhead wires are live and they are dangerous. And on that note, I am going to hand it over to Anthony from ETS.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Ng with ETS, and I'm glad to be able to join you tonight. And thanks to TransEd, who invited me to this open house, talk a little about our upcoming transit changes. Next slide, please. Yeah. All right. So I think as most people might already know, there's two major transit projects launching on April 25th, the new bus network and the on-demand transit service, both of which will work together. It's been 20 years since we last did a major update to our bus network, and that time Edmonton has changed a lot. And so a new bus network will better connect Edmontonians through more direct and frequent routes. And there will also be on-demand transit to complement the regular service. All right, next. So the next slide, I just have an excerpt from a ride guide, which shows the bus network in Southeast Edmonton. So as you can see, the 83rd Street area will be served by Route 4 on White Avenue, as well as the future Avonmore LRT stop. But until the LRT is operational, we'll also be operating Route 510X, which is shown in orange, as a high-frequency bridging service. And as I mentioned, Route 4 is still going to be on White Avenue. It's similar to existing Route 4 in that it will provide service on White and to University. As well, you'll notice that the neighborhoods of Avonmore and King Edward Park are shaded in yellow. And that's because some areas in these neighborhoods will have a longer walk to transit. So we've also included your neighborhoods in the on-demand transit pilot, which we'll talk more about in the next few slides. Okay, and next. The next slide just has a map of the Route 510X, which is one of the newer routes in the area. As you can see, it's similar to the current Route 15, for those of you who are taking transit right now. It goes from Millwoods to Millgate and then to downtown. And will also operate as an express service with a stop at 73rd Avenue. This route will have very frequent service as it's designed to replicate the LRT. So it'll be 5 minutes or better in the peaks, 7 to 8 minutes in the midday, and it will operate in all time periods, including late night and owl. Next. And as I mentioned, we are providing on-demand transit service in areas that have a longer walk to regular transit. And this 2-year pilot is the first time the city is doing something like this. So to start, the purpose of on-demand transit is to connect you to a transit hub where you can transfer to a regular bus or LRT. It's not door-to-door service, and it's not DATS. So what does this look like? You start by booking your trip using an app on your smartphone or from a computer or by phoning the on-demand call center. Bookings are required before you board the shuttle to ensure there is room for everyone and to allow the software to route everyone to the right stop. Then you walk to a pickup location marked with an on-demand transit sign, and the shuttle will take you to a nearby transit hub, in this case, Bonnie Doon. And from there, you can also transfer to a bus or LRT in the future. You don't pay a fare when you board the shuttle bus. Instead, the fare is collected when you transfer to regular transit. And for your return trip, it's the reverse. You book a pickup from the transit hub, and the shuttle will take you to one of the neighborhood drop-off spots. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, so you'll be able to book your trips up to 60 minutes in advance. Yeah, it looks like our text didn't carry forward, but Anyways, it will book your trip up to 60 minutes in advance, and during peak times, you'll be given a pickup time within 30 minutes for your shuttle, or within 60 minutes during off-peak times. We expect the time will actually work a bit better than that, though until the service is actually running, we can't guarantee it. If you book using the on-demand app, you'll also be able to see where your shuttle is in real time, and the service will be available 7 days a week, as you can see. All right, next slide. Next slide just shows a map of the on-demand stops in this area. So as you can see, there's a couple stops in Avonmore and King Edward Park, which I think is where most people on this call are from. And the stops are in blue are the neighborhood stops, and the stops are in green are the hubs, which in this case is Bonnie Doon. So essentially, the on-demand service will take you from a blue stop to a green stop, or vice versa. And then you'll be able to connect to other routes at Bonnie Doon. I'm not sure how clearly this map is coming through to everyone else on the call, but it's also available online if you want to look at it again. Next slide. Yeah, next I'm going to talk about some of the new bus stop signs you may see in the neighborhood. We'll just give it a minute to come up.
We can see them, Anthony. I think it's maybe your network connection.
Oh,
You may want to turn your camera off.
Sure. Yeah, that is rather odd. Okay, so I'm going to assume you guys are looking at 4 bus stop signs. So on the left is a sign for service changes. So you can see the existing service on top and then the future routes at the bottom. The next sign is for stops that will no longer have regular service, but in an area that is served by on-demand transit. And the third one is a sign for on-demand transit in neighborhoods. So this is where you would wait for an on-demand shuttle, and the sign would show the transit hubs that the shuttle goes to. This one's just a generic example, but the signs in your neighborhood will show Bonnie Doon. And then finally on the right, you see an on-demand sign at a hub. And that shows which neighborhoods and seniors residences will be served by this hub. So these would be the green stops in the previous example, sorry, in the previous map. And this example actually does come from Bonnie Doon. So as you can see, there is on-demand service to Avonmore and King Edward Park, as well as several other areas. And on the bottom right for all of these signs will be the bus stop number. So you can find them with the trip booking app or with our online maps. All right, next please. So the city has a number of online tools to help you get acquainted with the new network. There's several ways to plan your future trip, including the trip planner on our website, or you can use Transit app or Google Maps. Just remember to enter a date after April 24th. The Edmonton On-Demand Transit app will also be available soon for booking trips, and it will show you a real-time map of where your shuttle is once you've booked it. Network maps and route brochures are also available online, and some are being printed, but the distribution is limited due to COVID. We also have interactive maps showing the routes and the on-demand stops. There are also overview guides that describe the new bus network and the on-demand transit service, including videos that show you how to book a trip. All right, next please. And so what happens after the launch on April 25th? Well, we know we're not going to get it all right, so we're going to learn and look at adjustments in the future. We'll be monitoring ridership and the on-time performance for the new routes, but we know it could all take some time to settle down, especially as we deal with this third wave of COVID. We'll also be looking at feedback from customers. And after that, based on the above, we'll consider changes to the bus network after 12 to 18 months. I know it sounds like a long time, but we want to make sure we're making the right changes. And we'll also do a formal evaluation of the on-demand transit pilot and bring that to council. All right, next slide. Okay, and I'll just conclude by showing the links to our website, which is always the best place to get the most up-to-date information about both the new bus routes and the on-demand transit. And everything I've shared with you today can also be found at these links.
Great. Thanks, Anthony. And now we're going to move on to the questions part of this presentation. So once again, if you would like to submit a question or a comment, you just go to if you're on your phone or your tablet, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A. If you tap on that, you should be able to submit your question or comment. And if you're on your desktop or laptop, you'd need to exit full screen mode and just go to the top left of your the corner of your screen, and then you click on the Q&A that's there, and you should be able to submit a question or a comment. Once again, this format might have changed because they did just upgrade their platform here. Okay, so I'm just waiting to see some more questions coming in here, but while we're waiting, Dallas, I'm going to ask you a question you get every single time. When will this be ready? And then so people can jump on the trains.
Yeah, we get that question every time. You're absolutely right. I probably have to answer that question a couple times a week, I would guess, and happy to do so. So the first thing I want people that are watching this to understand is, I didn't mention it before, I don't think any of us have actually, that Transed is here to operate the Valley Line for the next 30 years. So we have a vested interest to make sure that when the system goes into service and passengers are welcomed on board, that everything is 100% ready. So there's a couple things. First of all, we make sure that everything that is in our contract has been completed. So we want the citizens of Edmonton to get exactly what they paid for. The other side of it is we want to make sure that there's not hiccups that are going to cause an interruption to service. So the testing and commissioning that Eric was talking about, and all the many, many steps it takes to get the train fully certified and ready for passengers, must be undertaken first, and we'll take the necessary time to do that. And if that means it takes a little longer than we were hoping, then that's what will have to happen. Now, when we talk about an actual date, I did drop a few hints intentionally because we always get this question, but I did drop some hints that it's pretty clear that we have work to do this summer and into the fall. So I talked a little bit about the River Valley and the park restoration in there taking into the fall, and I can tell you that it will. And when you consider also the testing and commissioning and the stuff that Eric's team has to do, I can tell you that it will take the bulk of this year to get complete. So we are targeting to have the system operational before the end of this year, and we're working really hard to make that happen.
Great. And the next question might be for Michelle here. Will there be restrictions to residential parking to avoid some of the citizens that want free parking?
Isabel, that is a question I'm going to have to take back to parking management because I don't have the answer, but I'm happy to take it back.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Michelle. Next question would be for Dallas. When will the shared used path across the Dawatna Bridge be open?
Yeah, that's probably question number 2, closely ranked to the first one. And I think I mentioned it before, but it's possible that maybe the person didn't hear it earlier on or didn't join from the start, but happy to repeat it. The shared use path construction itself underneath the concrete bridge that was completed last year and where we're installing the rail on top, or have already installed the rail and doing all that work on top, is underway. So we are actively installing the hangars that support that steel structure underneath the bridge. We'll be working on that shared use path proper, I call it, underneath the bridge for the next few months. Now that will be ready before we're able to connect pedestrians on either end of it. And that is directly related to the remainder of the river berms that have to be removed, the restoration of Louise McKinney Park and Henrietta Muir Park. And that restoration can't begin until we remove our construction laydown yards. Now, as we remove those yards, particularly on the north side, in and around and just beneath the tunnel portal, there is some last of the geotechnical work to do on that slope. So we basically, it's kind of like painting yourself out of a room. We build ourselves down the slope, and as we build ourselves out, remove the earth in our laydown yard, reshape things a little bit. We do all the reforestation and planting activities at the same time. And as we come down the slope, we'll get to a point where we can actually construct the trail system. So once all that work happens and the trails can be reconnected, only then can we actually open, and of course north and south sides of the river, only then can we actually open up the pedestrian crossing right across the bridge. So you can expect that to occur late this summer and into the fall, being able to open it to pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay. Thanks, Dallas. Someone did ask, is it possible to get a copy of the presentation? Yes, we are recording this presentation and it will be available on the website, transitlrt.ca, and it will also be available on our YouTube channel. One question I'm going to ask Eric is, when can you expect residents to see trains along 83rd Street?
So that's really good. When you talk to your mute button, the mute button always enjoy the conversation. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's very true.
It's as I was indicated by Dallas earlier, we're really are pushing forward to do all the verification, all the testing. So from an overall readiness as to when you can see a train around 83rd Street, probably going to be summertime by the time that we get there. But we're working in earnest and looking to get there as early as possible. We love to show our trains and we want people to see them. And, of course, we need to take it step by step. There's still many things that need to be verified, and there's steps that you cannot burn, and you just need to make sure that you do them before you move to the next one. If you keep in touch with all the messaging that we do with TransEd, you will have an inkling as to how we're actually approaching, and look for that train coming in your way. And when the vehicles with the little clearance envelope passes through, that vehicles coming on their own power are not far behind. Good question.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks, Eric. Question here for Anthony. Will citizens be able to purchase tickets at the 73rd Avenue station? Actually, 3 questions in one for you. And how will the monthly pass integrate with the new trains? And do you need to buy a separate one?
Okay, I'll answer the second part of that first. So the Valley Line is considered part of ETS service, and so it's the same bus pass that you would use on all other types of service. In terms of purchasing tickets, I think there is a ticket vending machine at the future stations, but I'm wondering if any of the other presenters would be more familiar with that.
Yeah, I can confirm there will be ticket vending machines at the Avonmore stop.
Great. Question here this would be for Dallas. How many pedestrian crossings will there be across 83rd between White and 76th Avenue?
Oh, you're testing my memory here. I believe there is at 73rd Avenue and then one at directly across from Al Mustafa School. I think that's 79th, I'm guessing. I can't remember exactly the street there. So one at the intersection itself and one perhaps at a little bit less busy intersection by the school. And perhaps, Isabel, if we could just take note of this question and confirm that. I don't have my drawings sitting right beside me, but I'm going by memory on that one.
Trust your memory. Have you been having your vegetables, Dallas, to make sure the memory is good?
Always eat my vegetables.
A question here on when the City of Edmonton's Valley Line LRT citizen working groups are meeting, and if they're meeting virtually. Yes, they are meeting virtually. We recommend that you get in touch with the city just to find out the one specific to 83rd Street. And the next question will be for Eric. Will power outage stall the trains on the tracks?
What a wonderful question. So yes, the trains absolutely need power. but we've designed the system with some resilience in it. So we have many power feeds in and along the alignment, which means that we take the power, from the main network, but from different parts of the system, so different sources, which allows us to switch over to other sources. And we're able to fill the voids, or should there be one of the traction power station that for whatever reason either needs to be maintained or is facing a local area power failure, then we're able to feed the power through the others. So that's part of all the things that we're verifying. So I'm sure that now you can understand that that there's more under the hood of the transit system than just mere direct connection to the cabling to the power. So this is really that's a very interesting question.
So I'm going to add to that, Eric, just to give a little bit of a geographical reference for the people along 83rd Street. We have multiple traction power substations. We call them TPSSs along the alignment or utility complexes. The ones specific to that area, and Eric, you'll jump in if I get this wrong, but there are really two that feed it, one on the north, one on the south. So along 83rd Street, the south traction power station is at 69A Avenue. If that one was to go dark, meaning it had a power outage, the power would be drawn from the traction power substation to the north, which is up by Bonnie Doon Mall, very close to the school yard there. So you would have to have a power outage that expands or extends beyond both of those areas, or encompasses both of those areas, for the trains to not be able to run along 83rd Street.
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
There you go. See, I've learned something. I'm not
just you did, absolutely.
Thanks.
Another one for Eric here. One of the attendees actually lives right by the tracks. Will the electrical from the overhead wires have any effect to their Wi-Fi?
It should not, because again, actually, that what I like about the question is that we're using Wi-Fi 2 along the alignment for the system. So the Wi-Fi at your home will not be affected by what's happening on the train. So that would be extremely surprising. Part of the testing that we're doing is to verify what's called the EMI, along the alignment. And so EMI is electromagnetic interference. And we do have a test that we're doing. So we've actually tested the train already into Kingston, to verify that it meets the standards that are very, very rigorous for this kind of system. And right now we are within parameters, so we're not expecting to see any kind of disruption on your Wi-Fi in your home whenever a train passes.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And another question here for Dallas. Can you speak to the LED lighting features that are going to be on the Dawatna Bridge?
Yes, I can. There is lighting. It's mounted down low and it shines up on the stay cables. And there's lighting underneath that shines down onto the shared use path walkway. So I think for context, the lighting on the Duodenal Bridge will not be the same as the lighting that you see on the high level bridge or any other structure along the city. It's not quite that pronounced or that defined. It's a bit more subtle, and some of that is actually done intentionally as well, not to create too much light pollution, but there isn't what I would call feature lighting and motion and that kind of stuff built into the lighting system on the Duwatna Bridge.
Awesome. And one more question while we have you here, Dallas, is there's a message that came in about a concern for the parasite parking that will run across the train line. How are we going to address that?
Yeah, I think as was mentioned by Michelle earlier, that's a type of question that we'll have to let the city parking people handle. So I would ask that Michelle notes this question and perhaps Isabel, if you have a name of the individual that's asking that, if we could record that and pass that on to Michelle as well.
Sounds good. So someone mentioned here that you live right beside the power station and 69A Avenue. And Dallas, do you have a timeline on when this might be complete? Specifically, if there will be a fence around it?
Yeah, there is additional landscaping and screening that goes around the property. I don't believe, actually, I'd have to confirm if there's a fence, so we'll have to take that question back. But I know what you see out there right now is obviously not a finalized product. There's a lot of landscaping and finishing work that still has to happen there, and that'll happen in conjunction with the testing and commissioning activities that Eric's team has been doing. So it'll occur in the coming months. I would suggest by midsummer that landscaping will be complete.
Awesome. I can't see any more questions that we haven't answered here, but I'll just give a minute just in case anyone else wants to plug in a question here. Actually, a funny question that came up the last time was if there's a favorite LRV that you have. So Eric, do you have a favorite train that has arrived for you?
You know, my favorite trains are all the trains.
You don't discriminate.
I don't discriminate. They're all good. So yeah, and I don't really choose them. And you know, it's quite amazing. It's you know, you can pick and choose them as you wish. And from a testing and commissioning, it's actually what we do. We pick them, you know, at random to do some activities. So we're not really wanting or liking one more than the other. Of course, one that's a bit special for all of us is the very first train that arrived into Edmonton because it was the first one to actually see the land of Edmonton. And I think that's always going to be special for us. But other than that, from an operational standpoint, they're all good. We all like them and we love them. And as you've seen, they're beautiful. So for me, my heart is with every single one of them.
Okay, I have to answer this question too. I turned my camera on just so
come on.
For my fan club who's listening in today to lobby for Dallas to have the opportunity to drive a train. I've been asking for 5 years and they keep saying no. So my favorite train will be the train that someone somehow lets me drive. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I'm trying. But I agree, they're all beautiful trains. I like to tell the story. Isabel and I have participated in some school meetings with classes and done online tours of the train. So I've been on a train in static condition, not when it's moving, holding up my phone and literally having a chat with school students. And that's been some of my funnest, most fun, funnest is not a word, my most fun engagements with the community has been with those students. So I don't know what train it was. Eric, maybe you can tell me someday which one I was on. I guess that's my favorite for now. But until I get on a train that's moving that I'm driving, that'll be my favorite.
I think you're going to have to follow the training first.
Yeah, I know, one thing I just want to know, we are mentioning some questions that we're taking back, and I can confirm we do have your names, those of you that are submitting questions. But there's other ways to submit questions to Transnet as well. You can always reach out to us via our info line, and that information will be provided at the end of the presentation as well.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending the virtual spring open house. Thank you so much to our presenters today, Eric, Dallas, and Anthony. Michelle, we appreciate you jumping on for this call. And thank you so much to the people who have attended today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to attend and to find out what kind of construction and our project progress. If you have any questions or there are any clarifications that need to be made, please reach out to us through our website, transitlrt.ca. There's a lot of information that is there if you have any questions on that. And then there's our phone number, which is 780-224-0964. Or you can send us an email at info@transitlrt.ca. And once again, there will be a survey that will show up at the end of this presentation. We ask that you please take the time. It will only take probably like a minute to 2 minutes, I promise, to fill out the survey. But we do love hearing from the attendees and from the public and stakeholders like you who are on 83rd Street and finding out how we can do better and how we can give you more information that you would like to hear from us. Thanks again and have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Stay safe.